ToorCamp stage.
Hello, my name is Ken Westin. About 5 years ago, I founded a company called Gadget Track. It was sort of an accident. I became very interested in tracking devices. I'll kind of talk a little bit about how I kind of stumbled into that. We used a lot of different technologies to help recover different types of devices, be it a flash drive. We even had a contract with FLIR where I actually have technologies embedded in thermal imaging cameras to help recover stolen devices as well as assist with export controls. And so we also did a lot with laptops and mobile phones as well. So this is kind of what I like to call my wall of shame. These are some of our recoveries, just a few of them we've been involved in, where we were able to capture photos, location, a lot of other information regarding a theft. One thing I really was interested in is we had I had to deal with a lot of douchebags, and I was really, thinking, is the world really this bad? And I actually went out and actually tried to get my laptop stolen. I actually installed our software on it. And about 8 different times the laptop did go missing, but there was a card inside and someone called me every single time. And this wasn't, maybe it's a testament to where I live in Portland. We're good people. But, by nature, actually, theft is not something that is, it's not a crime of convenience. Usually it's very premeditated. I also learned a lot that usually it involves drugs. Someone who's an addict goes out and they need money quickly, and that's usually the case in a lot of our theft recovery cases. As a result of that, we actually started donating money to the meth project for every recovery we had, just to help solve that particular problem. So in a lot of our recoveries, I found that it's not necessarily one piece of information that we actually get. Sure, sometimes we get photos, IP address, a lot of other information. We also rely a lot on the stupidity of the thief and a little bit of luck. And one thing I also found is that a lot of connections were made. It's not a lot of research has been done in sort of going out and hunting down gadget thieves, sort of the technologies that go into this. But I stumbled on this guy named Locard. He's sort of the grandfather of forensic science. He actually set up the first forensic crime lab in France. And he had this tenet where he believes that every contact leaves a trace. So this is dealing more with things that occur with murders and dealing with physical crimes. But this really is true in the digital world, especially now where our devices are carried with us throughout the physical world, and sort of those lines are being blurred quite a bit. So I started looking at a lot of the data we use to actually assist in the recovery of devices, and I sort of classified them into a few different segments. The first to be primary data. So this is information that we are fully aware of. It's information that we create, emails. It's information that we believe that we have control of, at least to some degree. Hopefully no one's snooping on us. The next is secondary data, and this is data that is device generated. It's information that we're aware of still, but it's not necessarily something we are creating ourselves. This is information such as voicemail, logs, could be Google Analytics, browser history, even GPS coordinates in our maps. We're aware that this information is being created, but we're not too concerned about it. The next layer is what I like to call data exhaust. So this is information that you may not be aware of that exists. So this can be metadata, device IDs, overzealous tracking. There's been quite a few cases in the press where location information is being shared with a provider that you may not want them to be seeing. Error logging, aggregated data. I even put data leaks because sometimes there is a data breach and your information is compromised and you're not told about it. And that information can be used against you once sort of everything becomes connected. So looking at devices themselves, if we look at the information that we can actually gather, there's a lot of information. We get IP address, IMEI, IMSI, the UDID for the iPhone, MAC address, serial numbers. All this information can uniquely identify that device, and it can be transmitted outside of the device and stored in the cloud. Also, you have files, so caches, a lot of metadata, Exif Data, for example, which I'll get to a little bit later for photos and other media types, log files, and file changes. We also have a hardware where we actually can access the camera on a device to capture photos of our environment. We can get GPS, Wi-Fi, and of course printers. A lot of people don't know that when you print something out, a lot of them actually have dots on there that will uniquely identify the printer that came from with the serial number. So just to give you a little background of where I started, I started with a deep interest in USB-based Trojans. I actually started a site called USB Hacks that focused a lot on a lot of the Trojans that were actually happening at the time. One big hole that we took advantage of was the auto run capability in Windows, which actually they just patched in XP like just a year ago, which was kind of crazy. We also relied on social engineering, passwords, MP3. You can make it look like all sorts of different types of files, and I'll show you a little example here in a minute. It's crazy is that we talk about a lot of security, a lot of money that goes into securing our servers and our from the outside, making sure when people are doing pen tests that we're secure. But the best way to get into a network is from behind the firewall. And I'm lazy, and I thought that would be a great way to test this stuff out. And so we really haven't learned. I mean, NASA has been hacked by this. There was a virus that was in the space station. Where did it come from? All the transmission between here and the space station, it's clean. There's no way that could have been the cause. Come to find out, astronauts were carrying flash drives with some files. It just happened to be that they plugged those in, and they would infect several computers, not just one. We also found like Air Force drones. Everybody heard about the virus that hit the drones, right? Now, again, USB flash drives were banned from the Air Force. They're not allowed to use them, except they made one particular exception for these guys because they needed to be able to transmit maps from one computer to another. The problem is these guys were taking these things home and using it for personal use as well. One of them had a little virus on it, and it affected all the other networks. The Air Force is now using Linux. And also, all the evidence points to Stuxnet actually being spread through a USB virus, because the facilities in Iran, they weren't connected to the internet at all, so they do believe it was an insider. Anyway, I did create this site called USB Hacks, and I talked a lot about this. I had a lot of interesting people contact me from both sides of the law. It was actually the first time I got to talk to the FBI. Good times. There's not. People say, well, okay, well, it's Windows only. Well, you can also build Trojans for the Mac. I actually went back and found some old code that I was playing with, and just kind of a side tangent. So here's what I did: I made an MP3 file. It looks like an MP3. If you double-click on that, it will open up iTunes. I found that Apple scripts are really a great way to take advantage of the OS X platform because it has access to all the different Apple software applications and not a lot of security holes or not a lot barring you from getting access to that. So for example, this one will actually open up iTunes. It'll gather a bunch of information and it'll pass it through through iTunes. Just like it'll look like it's a streaming application. Then it'll send back the streaming audio that you would be expecting, and then in the background you can do all kinds of other fun stuff. You can even run shell scripts, and it's a lot of fun. One trick though I ran into is that if you put a period on it, OS X, they said, oh, all right, hacker guy, we're not going to let you get away with that. We're going to go ahead and we're going to, if you put MP3, it'll put .app, so that you as a user know that this is an application. But it's not too tough to get around. There's this little character called an oganek in It's a Turkish character. Thank you, Unicode. If you put that in there, it looks just like a period. You put that on a flash drive and you say, hey man, I got this really great tune, you want to listen to it. Opens up iTunes and you can get a lot of other nice information from them. So an example of one recovery we had with tracking a stolen flash drive. It was actually stolen from a university professor. The device itself wasn't worth a lot, but the information on it was. It wasn't backed up, it wasn't encrypted, so he really wanted it back. He installed our little USB-based Trojan before it was stolen, so we were able to assist him. The device connected several times to a computer that we traced to the University of North Texas. The great thing is that we did not really have to work with police too much at all because we tracked it down through IT there to a specific computer lab. And we're also able to get the username of the person that had plugged that in. And another nice thing is that it was controlled access. So when they went in to go to this computer lab, they swiped the card, and we were able to have some extra evidence. And in case that wasn't enough, about a year before, they had a bunch of computers that were stolen, so they went ahead and installed some security cameras. So we also had a visual video of that particular person. They were able to get the flash drive back, presented them with enough evidence, and are like, okay, here it is. So again, this is something where it's not just an IP address, but we had a lot of other pieces of evidence, and we were able to connect it. And also, we're really, really fucking lucky. So I've also worked a lot with law enforcement. I actually did some work with NLETS, the National Law Enforcement Telecommunications System. And I learned a lot about some of the things that they do. To get an information from an IP address, it's not very easy. There is a sort of law enforcement hierarchy of protection. The only information you can get from a subpoena is transaction information. So from an IP address, you can get name, billing information, maybe some phone numbers, but you're not going to be able to get other information without a court order. And so that means if you want sort of incoming, outgoing numbers dialed, web traffic, things like that, you're going to have to go through these different steps and actually prove probable cause. It really depends on the judge you're dealing with, but still, it's kind of a pain in the ass. So you've seen all those videos like, CSI where people, they get the IP address and then they're able to immediately get the address, right? I wish it was that easy. It's really difficult to get information from an IP address, we learned. You have to do a lot of work, probable cause. Most police are extremely lazy. We found ways of sort of social engineering them to actually get the shit done, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. But usually they're not going to want to bother for your laptop or your netbook unless you take certain steps. It can take several weeks to months to actually get that information as well. So by then the laptop's been fenced, it's been sold, it's been wiped. So it's really difficult to get that device back. Also, a lot of times people are connecting to proxies, coffee shops, or they're connecting to their neighbor's Wi-Fi. There's been a few cases of that where someone's surfing child porn on their neighbor's Wi-Fi, and they're the ones that get busted for child porn. And then mobile IP address, it's shared, doesn't map to a specific city. We have also found when we started actually looking at doing laptop software is that a lot of companies require theft recovery teams. And the reason they do that is because there's a lot of paperwork involved. They also have a backdoor into the computer systems where they can actually remotely wipe files, install keyloggers, and some other things like that. We thought that was a little invasive. So IP address, it's great. It'll get us, the city. Down to the city level. Sometimes it'll even give us the carrier or the ISP, sometimes the organization. I like cell tower triangulation. It's great for mobile phones, but still it's not particularly accurate. We relied a lot on Wi-Fi positioning where we actually get the location of the device within 10 to 20 meters. What's beautiful about this is that it also works really well indoors and in dense urban environments. This is areas where a GPS signal is really difficult to get, and it also works really well in casinos where you can't get a GPS signal at all. And then, of course, you have GPS, which is a lot more accurate. It really depends on the device, but mobile devices really have a shitty GPS chip, so it's really rare that we can get a location from it. Usually rely on Wi-Fi positioning. So when we developed our laptop software, I didn't want to just rely on IP address. It's too much of a pain in the ass. So what we did is we paired the Wi-Fi positioning with webcam capture. So what we're able to do, if you have a photo of the person and you have the location, that's enough for probable cause. And the police don't have to do a whole lot of work. They simply go there to the spot where it is, ask a few questions, and usually they find it. Shortly before, when we launched our laptop product, we had our first recovery. It was actually an iMac that was stolen in Brooklyn, and we're able to provide this information to the police. It was the NYPD, and the guy I was dealing with was a major dick. He was just didn't believe that we could get this information. He thought we were scamming him or something like that. And I said, look, trust me, take the photo, go to the location, ask around. Just go ask around if anyone's seen this person, and I guarantee you're going to find a stolen device. And he's like, don't you tell me how to do my job, right? And I was like, all right, fuck off. And so actually he did it, and he was able to find it. It was a tattoo parlor. It was a back room. This guy actually owned it. And there was a lot of other stolen equipment in the room as well. They actually found 3 other laptops that were from different cases. It looks like this guy was buying a lot of stolen goods and selling them on eBay. And of course, then the cop, he was my best friend. Next time I'm in New York, he wants to take me to a baseball game or something. And we had another really interesting case. In the Portland schools, we had a number of laptops that were being stolen. And the schools were getting hit repeatedly. Actually, there was 6 different schools, and they kept going back, and they would go and kept stealing the Macs. So I worked with the police, and we actually installed our software on several bait laptops. We didn't even lock them up. We kind of laid them out. It was just like, go ahead and take these. And sure enough, a week later, the place got hit again, and the laptops got stolen. And we started getting connections in Vancouver, Washington, which incidentally is where most of our stolen property that we track in Portland ends up. I don't know why. It's Vantucky. But it's funny is the police went there. They took the information. They saw an address. They went directly to that specific address. They knocked on the door, and and it turns out the cop knew this guy. It's the guy that works on his roof or something like that. And he goes, "There's no way he would have been involved with it." And I'm like, it gets within 10 to 20 meters. That's not the specific address. This is a duplex, it's a duplex, so it's probably somewhere in the area. And they're like, well, he goes, I can't really do much more work on this. So I got pissed off, and I actually drove out there. And I started getting the Wi-Fi readings to make sure that the information was valid. And I actually drove, I'm not sure if you guys can see it here, but I was actually right here. I have my car, and I'm down there looking at my laptop, scanning the Wi-Fi networks to make sure that the information we had was valid. It was. And I look over to the left, and out walks this guy, the same guy we have a photo of, from the house that's right next door. And so then I called the police officer, and I said, yeah, I think I got him. And they finally drove out. There's like 5 of them that came out in one car. Then we'll take it from here. What happened was these guys never even knew that we busted them. They brought this guy in, several other ones, and they all started turning on each other. They believed that they basically got the police got them to believe that they were kind of telling on each other, basically. So we were able to bust probably 6 or 7 different guys, and they got them for a lot of other crimes as well. It was actually a Russian organized crime group. And so they were actually taking these and fencing them. And the guy that was actually lived across the street I was right in front of was a really, really bad guy, the police told me. Yeah, kind of scary. So then we moved into mobile. Again, for mobile, we wanted to use all the different types of location that we had available to us. So if it had cell tower signals, we would get that. Wi-Fi, we'd get that, and GPS if we could. We also wanted to try to capture photos if possible. We also started encrypting photos and doing backups as well of the information, not just tracking where that device is, which came in really handy later on. We can also remotely wipe information from the device. We also found that when people steal phones, they usually pull out the SIM card and put their own in. And a lot of other applications out there would, basically it would get rid of the application and wouldn't be any good. With our software, we would actually update the information. We would give you the new person's phone number that they have for the SIM card, as well as a subscriber ID, which the carriers use to identify the owner of that account. And shortly thereafter, we actually got a lot of interest from Sprint because they've had a number of thefts from demo units, and it wasn't too long before we had our first recovery.
That's helping track them down. News Channel 8's Ed Teachout spent the past 2 days with police and investigators on the trail of swiped cell phones. He's live outside the Washington Square Mall where the theft took place. Ed.
Well, the managers of the Sprint store here at the Washington Square Mall behind me say they're very confident that tracking software developed only miles away from here and put onto their demo phones will lead to an arrest.
This is a $500 phone. This ends up being a $450 phone.
2 empty display cradles are all that remains after someone stole 2 demo cell phones from the Sprint store at Washington Square Mall on Saturday. Moments after surveillance video caught the theft on tape, employees initiated tracking software installed on the stolen phones.
We were able to not only find the GPS location of the individuals that took them, but also we've been able to monitor any activity that happens in the phone.
That activity turned out to be pictures someone took shortly after the phones were stolen. Tigard police admit it's a brave new world when pictures taken on cell phones can be told to send back pictures once they're stolen.
And that has not only piqued the interest of our investigators, but in essence appears at this point could be very credible information for us to follow up on.
The Portland creator of the software tracking the theft says police are on the right track.
If they're not the thieves, they definitely know who stole it.
And if you look over the head of this man, you'll see in the window an Oregon temporary permit. Philip, this is Ed. With the help of a gadget track investigator on the phone, we tracked the stolen phone signal to this Vancouver apartment complex. There we found the exact temporary permit and a young woman who told us off camera a man she called Peter had sent this photo to her Saturday evening, but says she knew nothing about the phones.
Hi, my name is Ed.
We tracked the second cell phone signal to this duplex about 8 blocks away.
You don't have a Samsung Epic phone in this location?
No. Police were here yesterday looking for it.
We're back live now outside the Washington Square Mall, where we've just obtained within the hour those DMV records on that temporary permit. Tigard police say they hope the men in the pictures will contact them soon so they can explain how their faces ended up on a stolen cell phone. Back to you.
Thank you, Ed Teachout. The contractor is accused of overspraying weed killer and ruining.
So that one we actually busted 6 guys again. One of them was actually already had a warrant out for his arrest. We also recovered a stolen vehicle. Yes. So a lot of times images help us out. We get a lot of information from the photos that get taken, of course. You know, we had the trip permit. We also had the case where we got the photo of the guy, but all the other stuff in the background was also stolen as well. So it's kind of hard to refute this in court. And down below, you'll see some other photos. This is from another product we had, I'll talk about, where we actually recovered a stolen camera. By doing some searches, we found a lot of other photos were taken by this particular person. And he really likes weed and illegal firearms, and he likes to take pictures of it. He also took a photo of his speedometer going 120 miles an hour while smoking a doobie, which is multitasking. So you also have metadata that I found that's in those images. It's exchangeable image file format. A lot of cameras we actually found will actually embed the serial number of the camera into the photo that it was taken with. We kind of found that out by accident when we were doing some stuff with encryption of the images. You can even upload a photo to Exif Scan. It's a site that I built. It'll actually pull out the serial number, and if it has GPS coordinates in the photo as well, it'll show you a map of where that photo was taken. So you may want to, check your data before you upload it to Facebook. So that one case that we had, we weren't able to get the location from the device itself. There were some weird issues we were having with the particular handset. The location services were off, but we were able to get the information from the photo itself because it was doing geotagging. So we're actually able to get basically almost where that device was at the time when they captured the photo. So it was really handy. So this really got me thinking and doing some more research. And I found that there was a case a while back. It was on 4chan where a high school student uploaded a photo saying that he was going to be bombing his school. And that's not something that goes over really well nowadays. And so there was a bit of a reaction. But they found information that was actually embedded in the Exif Data, including the owner's name of that camera. So they were able to, it was actually the father, and luckily it wasn't a real case of a bomb or anything like that. But they sent out this letter to the school, basically telling them what was happening. But yeah. So I got this idea where what if we were able to go out, and I found a lot of sites actually kept this information intact. Flickr was one of them. The trick was that there's over 7 billion images that needed to be scanned, and that would take a lot of time to do on my laptop. And we have to scan it, have to pull the images down, try to extract the information, and so I actually partnered with a friend of mine that had a startup that did distributed computing. So what we actually did was we wrote the Exif script that would actually go and scan Flickr, and we actually distributed over between 200 and 300 computers at any given time, and we're able to actually go out and extract all the Exif data from Flickr images within 1 month. That was a lot. We launched the product as a beta. We put it out there, we offer it for free. People started searching for their cameras that were stolen, and we had one really great hit. This is a photo of John Heller. He's a professional photographer. He was on assignment for Getty Images about a year and a half ago at the Egyptian Theater. He turned around and about $9,000 worth of camera equipment was gone. And that's really rough when you're a professional photographer. You're on contract, no insurance, that equipment was gone. He heard about our service and he did a search, and he was able to find some information about the camera. The camera was actually sold on Craigslist and then sold again on eBay. We were able to track it down all the way through. The person that had it, that bought it on eBay, posted photos to Flickr, which we were able to pull down. We actually were able to map that to got a name of a person, found the guy on Facebook. He was a professional photographer as well. And we actually saw a photo of the camera itself. He posted photos of his own equipment. He actually wasn't the thief. The person that kind of downstream, the guy that sold on Craigslist, was the thief. But when the police went in, they actually were able to, they went to that person's house and they found a lot of other stolen property as well. This is like a year and a half later, so this guy's been doing this for a while. So the LA police got involved. They love it. They were able to get the camera back for him. It's really interesting. This is the first time there's ever been a recovery like this. And it sort of sets a precedent for camera thieves. The idea that if you steal a camera, years later, that can come back to you. So if it gets sold 2 or 3 times, someone takes a photo, uploads it to one of these sites, we're able to pull it down, then we can recover it and solve other crimes. We've also been talking with law enforcement about how this can be used to help with child pornography as well. If they go in, they find an image or a camera, it'd be really interesting to see if that serial number matches someone that's out there uploading, family photos at Disneyland. Maybe we can solve some other crimes. So with the guy that stole it, he sold it on Craigslist. The guy that bought it on Craigslist sold it on eBay. Then the person that bought it on eBay, he took the photos, uploaded them to Flickr. Our bot was able to get it. We found it on Flickr. And then on Facebook, that's where we were able to get the name of the person because we had the user ID. Well, the guy, when the police went in to get the camera back, they told him, yeah, I got this on eBay from this seller. And actually, the guy who bought it from on eBay was really cool. He gave him his money back. He's like, I had no idea this was stolen. What's funny is that this did get a lot of press, and the guy that actually had the camera, he contacted me, and his life was hell, actually. He had to hire an attorney. The police were just coming after him like he was the thief, and finally he explained the whole story. And once the police went in to get the guy that had it on Craigslist, then things made sense. So there's some people that should know better about Exif Data. A good case is Anon Wormer, if you guys are familiar with this case. So he hacked some law enforcement websites and was very vocal about it on Twitter. He uploaded some photos of his girlfriend, basically saying how he pawned them, and some other screenshots as well. But there was some information that were in those images that they were able to get. And when he uploaded those photos too, law enforcement was able to extract the Exif data, and they were able to see that photo was taken in Australia, in a particular town. They actually mapped it to a specific house, and it was his girlfriend, Kylie Gardner, and on Facebook saw that there was a connection, and they were able to identify the person that had took those photos, and he's going to be doing some time. So if you're uploading photos, make sure that you strip out the Exif data. No, you can forge it. Yeah. Yes, some do, and that's the next one. So this is where we found a lot of the Exif data. It still exists. So Flickr, 500 pics, we were able to index that really quickly. That's great because it's all professional photographers, so there's a lot of mostly high-end cameras there. TwitPic, Tumblr, we're able to get some. Blogger. Panorama, which is great because we also get GPS coordinates because most of those it's people taking photos at various locations. Tumblr. One thing I really found interesting is that Twitter, even though when you upload a photo to Twitter it strips out that information, your profile photo, it doesn't. So I actually found these tiny little icons that people had uploaded, and there's still Exif data in there, like tons of Exif data. There's more Exif data that's actually larger than the image itself. So we're able to get GPS coordinates and a lot of other information. And I started indexing those too. I think we're on like 200 million. We're just going through every single account we possibly can and extracting that data. So another case we had, we actually tracked a stolen MacBook. It was stolen in Portland, and we didn't get any connections for like several weeks. And I was like, oh shit, like they reformatted the drive or it's been scrapped for parts. But sure enough, we started getting some pings back in Missouri of all places. And I was like, what the? Yeah, this is strange. And we started getting this guy here. We tracked him through. He was in a hotel with some strange girl. I don't know what happened there. There was a McDonald's. I think we had like over 100 different connections from him. And then he changed the username on the computer, so we actually had his full name. We then were able to go out and do some searches on eBay and MySpace. And he's a big eBay seller. He likes to sell car parts, lots of car parts. He's a power seller on eBay. And so he's really into cars, and we saw that he was really into a particular model of vehicle, and we're able to find some photos of his latest project, and we also had his license plate number. He actually sold the stolen laptop then to one of his friends, who we also had a connection with on Facebook. So this is a case where we actually provide a lot of information to law enforcement. It was a huge stack. There were some issues with this one because the person that had the laptop stolen didn't file a police report immediately. And I'll kind of talk about why that's an issue when you start crossing state lines. The police there cannot act on information until there's a police report filed, and it has to go through a certain process. But by the time we actually had everything in place, we had this big stack of evidence. The district attorney there said, you have more than enough. If you go in, bust this guy, even if he doesn't have the device, we have enough evidence here to bust him for possession of stolen property, which is sort of a first for us, just having that much information. So a little bit about how the police database works. And which I've done a little bit of work with. Not sure if you guys can see the map. Oh. A little too dark here, but basically every single state, when they report stolen property or crimes, it goes into this system called NLETS, and that's sort of the shared repository, and then that information gets downloaded to all the different states. So if a police report gets filed, that's how they can track it across state lines. If you don't file a police report in time, there's no record of it, like in Washington, then the police there cannot act on that information until they can actually prove that this device has been stolen. I wanted to do some things where when you activate tracking, we can automatically submit a police report. So I was trying to tie into this system, and I got really pissed off because they wouldn't let us have access, but I found this one company that did. And they actually power all the online police reporting systems for pretty much all across the United States. And I did some research, and I found that it was actually run by an active duty police officer. I got pissed off, and so I wrote some stuff where we actually tie into their system. So when you activate tracking, you can file a police report directly online, and it goes directly into their system. And it was totally kosher because our tax dollars pay for that service. So. Some tools that we use, to track down users, put them up here. Creepy's a really good one. Lives up to its name. Maltego has a good one. The case file I've used. Rapleaf is great. It's usually used for marketing, but you can pull a lot of PII from that as well. If you have an address or general information, you can get the name of the person, sort of do a reverse address lookup. So in that one case you saw where we actually captured the license plate, I started kind of digging into this, and I started learning a lot about license plate readers. I wanted to learn just basically how the systems work, and it kind of freaked me out. More and more police agencies are using LPR. It used to be used specifically only for recovering stolen vehicles, but what's happening is that they're using it for other crimes. They actually will strap these things to the top of a patrol car, and they can scan over 1,800 plates and going to 120 miles an hour. So as you drive by the car, it's actually scanning your plate. It's also getting a GPS coordinate and also the time. So that information is then stored in the cloud. So if they want to identify where you've been, they can look at your license plate number, and they'll actually see a history of everywhere that you've been for a given time frame. And I thought, there's no way police would actually do this. And I'll talk about this is actually it's actually happening in New York. It's a little freaky. And I found like law enforcement, they're not allowed to store that information themselves. There's restrictions on like privacy, right? But the way they're getting around that is they actually have there's a company called Vigilant Video. They're a private corporation, so they're not bound by the same restrictions. It just happens to be the only person they give access to this information is law enforcement. There's also private databases that are being created. I did some research on visual and video, and they say it's people in the financial sector. That, who the heck in the financial sector would want access to this information? Repo men. Repo men basically have these same readers. They go driving through apartment complexes, scanning these numbers, and then they have this private database of this information of where you've been. It's almost like you have to have do not track in your car nowadays. So they expanded it recently. It's a collection of public and private databases. They do about, it was 40 million scans a month. I mean, there's over 1 billion records currently stored. They say it's only for 30 days, but looks like there are archives of that information. So you can also buy your own for $300 to $600. So I'm looking to get myself for Christmas. Thought it'd be kind of interesting to set something like this up outside my house, do some scans on just a proof of concept of what kind of information you can gather. Yeah. It's one of those hazy gray areas which law enforcement's been acting a lot more like hackers lately. You know, they're trying to get beyond some of the laws and things like that. So if they're ahead of the technology and you're in this hazy gray area, a lot of the Homeland Defense dollars are going to this. There's all kinds of I found these small like podunk places they're getting all this money and they're buying all this tracking and surveillance equipment that they really don't need, and it's a little sketchy. So I did a lot more research, and I also started looking into facial recognition technology. I thought it'd be a cool thing to add to our software. And I actually met with the CTO of the DMV, and I was curious how they used it. And in Oregon, when you get your license now, you don't automatically get your driver's license like here you go like you used to. You get a temporary license. What happens is immediately when they take your photo, they actually run your image to make sure that it matches your last photo. If there's any red flags there, you may not get your license immediately. They then send that to a clearinghouse. So you'll get your temporary license, and then they're going to run your photo, and they're going to check to make sure that it is you. They're going to make sure that there's no fraud, and they run this nightly. What I really found interesting is that the database cannot be used for any other crimes. So, for example, if we had a photo of someone in a laptop theft, the police cannot go in and scan, use that technology and scan faces and look for a match. There's only one simple law that is keeping them from doing that. It's this SB 640, and I think we're like one terrorist attack away from that being revoked. So the technology exists to track people, and so it's just something that I think people need to be aware of. It's a little scary. They also have this Morris device, which is a mobile thing that's actually scanning retinas, doing a lot of bioinformatics, checking just a lot of like offender recognition for irises. They even do fingerprint scanners and some other things. Also became interested in closed caption TVs. There's over 30 million security cameras in the U.S., especially after 9/11. A lot of agencies got a lot of money, and they put a lot of money into these. Most have really crappy security. About 70% of them still have the default passwords, and you can find them online. Shodan. And some of them still have backdoors as well. They're actually built-in backdoors for law enforcement, which is kind of sketchy. So you sort of think about all these different technologies that are out there. People are like, "Oh, you're being paranoid. Law enforcement will never use this." Does anybody know about the domain awareness system that was announced by New York? Well, I heard a little bit about it about a month ago, and it was just announced about 2 days ago. Basically, the New York NYPD and Microsoft teamed up to build the ultimate surveillance systems. They're tying in license plate reader technologies that they have all around the city, along with radiation readers, closed caption TVs. Right now they have over 3,000 cameras that are hooked into this system. And it also can do a really fast lookup of your information if you have a record. And there's some other technology that are plugging into this as well. So it's only a short amount of time before I think they put the facial recognition in there as well. What's really sketchy about this is that New York, if this gets sold to other governments, New York will actually get 30% cut from Microsoft for this. So it's a little sketchy. It's something I think people need to be aware of and keep an eye on. And if you want my slides, they will be up on domainawareness.system.com hopefully today.